Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. We're gonna start this video from the events in Syria, however, because those influence our direct enemy a lot, the Russian Federation. And from what I see, there was a massive breakthrough of the rebel forces. Just look at the vast lands they managed to take, including Aleppo city. Yes, there are some of the spots in the city which are still under control by the government armed forces, but mainly Aleppo is gone for them. It happened in just 3 days and the massive offensive of the rebel forces continues. The breakthrough happened really fast and it is understandable that the soldiers of the government of Assad cannot control the situation, and a part of their forces are probably encircled from the north of Aleppo. It's been reported that the rebel forces also captured the Haman military airport with some of the jets in it. Those were not Russian sophisticated fighter jets, but the training jets used by the Syrian army to train their pilots. And the rebels published the video with one of the captured airplanes. It's L-39 Dolphin, which the Assad army left in the airfield and just run away. So this aircraft could be used also for the combat missions. As you can see, they also have some of the munition, probably even for this airplane. Yes, this is the Nurs, the uncontrolled missiles, which could be used on this airplane as well as on some of the helicopters. Also, at least one more airplane of that type was captured. From what I may see, it was used not just for training, but for the direct combat purposes. Hopefully you can see this thing over here. So it mounts under the wing of the airplane and it fires the uncontrolled missiles from it. Also, Mi-8 helicopter was captured by rebels. You can see it belonged to the Assad army. They have a very big Assad picture on side of the helicopter. Yeah, some armies put their flags, but here to define you use the Assad face. And this is the long-range Soviet-made rocket artillery system Uragan, which was also captured by rebels. Also, there is the standard Grad system that was captured, plus more air defense like, for example, Shilka. Some of the old tanks, BTR and artillery system also was at the same spot near the airfield. Plus the rebels captured lots of the small munition, firearms and so on. This will help them to fight against the Assad army. In one of the airfields, the rebel forces were able to capture the Russian air defense system Panzer 1S, which is quite capable and unique, so they will use this system against the Russian airplanes. The scenario looks more and more like in Afghanistan, but from the different perspective. However, there is the major difference and I'm gonna explain it later in this video. Well guys, after all, even with all of that trophied equipment, it's early to say that Assad forces are losing this big war. According to the last information came to this hour, Assad forces were able to get control back over some of the small settlements, but in general, yes, rebels have the advantage for now. And they continue to advance from Aleppo. Also, Iran say that they will send some of the reinforcements to help the Assad army. So we'll see how it goes in the nearby future. If you open the general Syrian map, you will see that the red territory it's been under control by the Assad regime is still kind of big. But Aleppo is the second largest city in Syria after Damascus. And to reach Damascus, the rebel forces need to cover hundreds of the kilometers, so it's not possible for now. But what they can do is to cut the sea connection for Assad regime and also for the Russian army, because the vast part of the supplies Russia delivers not by air but by sea. We're speaking about the port of Latakia, which is also the main Russian supply hub. And even the Russian Z bloggers are speaking about this possible bad outcome for the Russian army. The main battle will go for Hama city. For this hour, it's been reported that there is some shooting, but I don't have the confirmation that the rebel forces definitely are in the city. Why is it important? Because they may turn to the Tartus naval base. I think it's the plan of them. By doing so, they'll eliminate the Navy supply port for the Russian army, as well as supplies for the Russian major military airfield in Khmeimim. In this case, the airfield will not be able to function normally. For now, Russia still flies their fighter jets. They try to stop the convoys of the assaulting forces of rebels, but still they cannot stop the major assault. Guys, and by the way, if you want to support the job that I do daily on YouTube channel, you may join me on Patreon. I'll put the link on my Patreon page just in the video description below. Thank you so much for supporting my motivation. The Russian Z patriots continue to say the Syrian army fights well. They are repelling most of the attacks, But at the same time, we see that something goes wrong there because Russia dismissed their main commander in Syria. We're speaking about the Lieutenant General Sergei Kisel, who by the way was the commander of the Russian forces during their attack on Kharkiv city back at the beginning of the full-scale war of Russia against Ukraine. By that time, the Russian forces were absolutely demolished near Kharkiv, including their elite Spetsnaz forces, and after that, General Kisel was moved to Syria, where it seems like he wasn't really ready for the current events. That's why he messed up again, and Russia decided to replace the guy. But it seems like it's too late. The Assad regime starts to crack down with a very high pace. By the way, a few hours ago, the shooting was reported in Damascus. Some media sources were fast to report that it is the local resistance that was sleeping for a very long time, but so far we don't have the confirmation of that. Meanwhile, Assad went to Moscow. I guess that's the old image just to illustrate for you. So he is not there with his army. He begs Putin to help. Well, Russia has announced that they will move some of the military airplanes to Syria, but I guess it's kind of late. And you cannot stop the ground attacks with airplanes only. No, this feature doesn't work. To successfully fight against the fast-moving ground forces, you need to deploy the ground forces. And Russia has just few of them in Syria. So the question of the coming days is whether this operation will be successful performed by the rebel forces. The rebel forces are not really our friends, and if they take the power in Syria, who knows what to expect. But for Ukraine particularly, this situation is very, very profitable, because our direct enemy Russia may face bad circumstances for, first of all, its reputation, then the army forces. Third, they will lose the influence in the Middle East, and Russia definitely shows that they are unable to protect their allies, in this case Assad regime. The situation for Russia could be even worse than for the United States troops in Afghanistan. Because in Afghanistan, after all, for the United States Army, it was the command to withdraw the forces. But Russia here tries to secure the Assad's regime. They are not withdrawing the troops. So if they fail with this mission, it could be a devastating harm done to the Russian morale and also to the Russian image. Plus, Syria itself plays a great role because they have oil, and the country is located between Jordan, Saudi Arabia and Turkey. So potentially if some of the pro-Western forces will take power in Syria, which I now put under the question, but in any case there could be the pipeline built from Saudi Arabia through Jordan to Turkey and later on to Europe. That will reduce the Russian oil and gas influence on European consumers. And Qatar may also supply its gas through the possible future pipeline. So if we speak about the future long-term planning for tens of years ahead, Syria plays the crucial role in the Middle East. And we understand that Russia now has tremendous troubles in controlling their allies. So for sure in the coming years, if not months, they will lose Syria. The main idea now is to definitize the country, because some of the rebels or some of the forces could be fanatics, which will create even more chaos in the country. And to build the oil and gas pipelines, you need the stability in the country. So even if Russia loses the control in Syria, the Russian regime will still try to destabilize it. And Russia may also lose its influence in Georgia, one more country where Russia introduced their puppet government using the soft power. Now the ruling party totally cancels the pro-Western development of Georgia. As the backfire, the United States of America and the European Union cancelled all of its programs for Georgia, so people do not like that stuff. I mean, the great part of the population of the country. So they start to walk on the streets, riot, but police start to beat them. I cannot show you the images with that on YouTube, but I'll publish those on my Telegram channel. So people do not agree with cancelling of those pro-European initiatives. That's what happened, by the way, in Ukraine back in 2014. Then President Yanukovych cancelled the major agreement between Ukraine and European Union because he received some of the bribe from Russia. And we all understand what happened next. Well, in Georgia, I don't think that Russia has high chances to lose its influence, but still there are some of the chances. Well, why do I think like that? Well, because Georgian government already showed that they are willing to use the force against their own people. So they will do everything to seize those rights. Well, we'll see the outcome in the coming days or maybe even months. The Georgian president, who is pro-Western oriented, said that she will not leave her position and will stay in office until the ruling party is gone. Right now to the news directly from Ukraine. It's been reported by the Ukrainian GUR, so military intelligence, that yesterday Ukraine hit 3 of the S-400 systems in Crimea. Well, yes, it's better not to say the systems, but the units, the radar and the launcher. Two of the launchers, as it was reported. However, we are still in lack of the image, I mean satellite image or the real evidence from the place, as it was the last time done in the Kursk region, where Ukraine definitely hit the S-400 system. Yes, there was the big kaboom, so for sure it was the air defense, but which one? Well, after all, hopefully we'll see. Ukrainian guru stated that it's S-400. As for the Ukrainian front lines, there is the major change not far away from Shevchenko, so it was yesterday, the day before yesterday and today. We see how after Russia occupied Zhovte, they want to expand this bridgehead. Their goal is to take those couple of roads leading to Pokrovsk. And they want to advance also from this side and this side to Mirnograd. Well, I think that Russia has the chances to occupy this settlement and Mirnograd till the end of the year if they continue the assault with the present pace and continue to expand this bridgehead. We also know that Russia sent some of the reinforcements, also military support came from North Korea, the rocket artillery systems, the self-propelled Hotvisors. Russia started to use more FPV drones, much more compared to Ukraine nowadays. Probably they have the direct support of the drones and the drone parts from China. Ukraine doesn't have that feature, so our volunteers have to search for the spare parts and drones also from China, but on other markets in Europe and in some of the Asian countries, basically purchasing that equipment via intermediary companies created for this purpose. But nowadays China closes the doors for the drone equipment for almost everyone except Russia. In Kurakhov direction, Russia tries to go to Stary Terny, so it was yesterday, it is today. They want to bypass this lake and attack from the back. And the fights are ongoing in all of the Kurakhov, so it's just a matter of time then Russia occupies it. And on the south here, Ukraine will continue to withdraw the troops. For the last couple of days, there is again a major change. So yes, unfortunately here the situation is not good, and also it's not good near Velika Novosilke because recently Russia advanced quite a lot. It was yesterday and it is today. This was the Ukrainian counteroffensive operation back in 2023, but now as we can see Russia took those territories kind of fast. So Velika Novosilka will also be taken by Russia, it's just a matter of time, and after it they'll take control over all of those villages. Yes, Russia still has many more resources compared to Ukrainian army, and moreover they have infantry, they have more military men. I'm also concerned about the Kharkiv region because here Russians crossed the Oskil river, they used the rubber boats for that. So this is the river, it's narrow in this place and the Russians managed to do it. And this is the map from the Myko 73 source, so the idea now for Russia will be to create the bridgehead on the other shore, and next Russians will probably build some sort of the pontoon bridge to move their heavy armored vehicles. So here Russia shows us that they're not just interested in Kherson Oblast, Zaporizhia, Donetsk and Luhansk, they also assault towards the Kharkiv region, at least from two of the directions. So if Russia occupied those territories, so what is the obstacle for them to occupy, for example, Kharkiv, or to put this region into their constitution and to say, okay, we need Ukraine to recognize those territories, otherwise we'll continue the war. I would tell you more, the idea for Russia is to occupy all of the Ukraine, or at least the part of the territories, at the same time introducing the puppet government in Kiev. The Russian officials again confirmed that for them to start negotiations, just to start those with Ukraine, Ukraine should give up those territories like full Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Luhansk to Russia, recognize Crimea and that part as the Russian territory, disarm its army, perform denazification, whatever it means, and only after that Russia may start speaking with Ukraine. It is complete nonsense. For this reason, I am sure that there will be no negotiations possible with Russia. The Russian regime wants to continue the war in Ukraine, especially now that they have some of the success on the front lines, and they are thinking about the future mobilization of their army men in Russia. The faster the new White House administration understands that it's just useless to negotiate with Putin, the better it will be for everyone. Kind of the strange statement from Zelensky, he suggests that he is prepared to end Ukraine war in return for NATO membership, even if Russia doesn't immediately return seized land. Well, first of all, Zelensky cannot end the war in Ukraine. Russia is attacking Ukraine. Ukraine is defending. If you end the war from your side, if you stop shooting, Russia will take your ground, that's it. They'll get rid of Zelensky and put their own puppet government. So this scenario to end the war from one side is simply not possible. By the way, Zelensky tried to do it, then he became the Ukrainian president back in 2019. He said that it's better to stop shooting and the war will be over. It doesn't work with Russia like that. But the general idea is right. The NATO membership could be definitely a guarantee for Ukraine. In case of the NATO membership of the Ukrainian-controlled territories, Ukraine definitely may sign the long-lasting peace agreement, but no one will let Ukraine in NATO in the nearby years. It is understandable, like 2 + 2 = 4, there is no even invitation for Ukraine to join NATO. So maybe with this message, Zelensky wants to show Donald Trump that Ukraine is ready to negotiate. It's even ready to freeze the war with robust security guarantees and not to liberate its own lands with a military force in the future, introducing the diplomatic steps only. Zelensky said about Crimea recently like that. But again, the problem with everything of that Russia would never agree on Ukrainian NATO membership, and they have the resource to strike Ukraine again and again, so the war will continue in any case. Allies should influence the Russian regime, because Ukraine might be influenced, as you see, very easily, because Ukraine is very dependent on the Western help. Russia is not, and they are free to do whatever they want, so they attack Ukraine again and again, as we see on the front lines. Well, what I don't like that some of the officials on the West, especially from the United States, are pushing Ukraine to lower the mobilization age for the Ukrainian man. Guys, it will completely destroy the future perspectives for Ukrainian development, Ukrainian population perspectives, with no real pluses on the front lines, because the part of the Ukrainian population between 18 and 25 itself is quite low. It was critical for development of the country even before the war, but if you mobilize all of those men with the current losses Ukraine has, yes, Ukraine also has losses, 2-3 times less than the Russian army, but still those losses are big. You basically cancel the future of the country. And why do I say that there will be no any military achievements even in that case? Well, because Russia always has more infantry compared to Ukraine. Always. They have more population, they have more volunteers whom Russia pays millions of rubles, or Russia may start a new mobilization campaign very easily. You just cannot fight the Russian midwaves with your own midwaves. You will always lose in this case in general, and you'll lose the precious lives of your soldiers, of your people basically. And from Russian side, who fights in most of the cases? People who were not able to find themselves in civilian lives, the outcasts of their society, also prisoners, alcoholics, people that have some of the mental issues, but from Ukraine, who fights? The best of the best. So as I say to you always, the only way to conquer the Russian army is to obtain the state-of-art weaponry, more precise, with a longer range, with more firepower. That's the only way. And luckily, Ukrainian government, so Zelensky, understands that. He says that many Western leaders are pushing Ukraine to mobilize men from 18 years old. 18 is like a kid. As I remember myself in 18, I was definitely like a child. But at the same time, Zelensky added that they agreed to arm 10 of the brigades of Ukraine, but Ukraine has received the weaponry for 2.5 brigades. Zelensky doesn't see the goal to send those young people to fight against the Russian midwaves with no weaponry, and it is very logical. Moreover, I would add that without the area superiority, without the long-range weaponry, it's better not to send those youngsters, because Russia will just mid-grind them, that's it. So Ukraine should obtain way more weaponry that it obtained, but as we know, there are some problems with it. So if we put everything of that puzzle all together, it's gonna be a very hard time for Ukraine in the coming years. Russia will not stop attack Ukraine. There will be no robust security guarantees for Ukraine as the NATO membership. The only way for Ukraine to win in this war is for Russia to collapse. That's the only thing that may save us in the coming years. So for Ukraine, it's important to hold till that time. Guys, the realities are like that. My friends, I'm gonna keep you updated on situation in Ukraine, and not only. For now, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. And as usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.